After a short trading week and a long weekend, the market started to pull back a bit, but then things changed on Friday. Good evening, my fellow Riz Elite members and all of our subscribers here on YouTube. Welcome to this week's Elite webinar. Now, if you had a great time over the long market weekend this week and the short trading week, then make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And even if you didn't have a good time, do it anyway. And make sure you hit that bell icon too to get notified every time we upload a new webinar here to the channel. So let's take a look here at the S&P 500 to kind of get things going. Now, we had really been respecting this trend line, even though we breached down below it here in the middle of April. It was acting as resistance. We pushed back over it again, was acting as support. And then after this, we had the Memorial Day weekend and then short trading week. So just 4 days. We started on Tuesday and it was down, down, down until Friday. And Friday was just wild, for lack of a better term. And thankfully, I have the man himself, Riz, here today. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, Chris.
Awesome. So what in the world happened here on Friday, Riz? The market just went nuts.
Yeah, that was honestly never in my wildest dreams would I expected that kind of move. So really, is there a clear, precise answer of what happened, why it happened? No. But hey, that's the markets for you. Something came in where it just a dip buying just went crazy. It just flipped complete 180. That's you can see that tail on that candle. Like
Hmm.
it's not very common to see that kind of move, and that's a large move for SPX within the day. Almost like we actually went below 5,200 for briefly, and you could see very close to that 50-day moving average as well. And then a massive pickup, right? And then closing the day higher, which is quite absurd. Honestly, it's a very eerie. It's very out of the norm to have that kind of move. And we've kind of seen this happen. It's not the first time, obviously. Uh, we've seen a lot of indecisiveness on the upside and downside. But the markets continue to just absorb any selling, is continue to look at things in, I would say, an overly optimistic fashion. But again, that's my opinion. We are now squarely, at the time of this webinar on Saturday, June 1st, we're squarely in the last month of Q2. And it's like half the year is left pretty much. And it's quite interesting to see that the market's up what roughly, I mean, we'll see that in the next part of the webinar, but it's been chugging along, like you said, just with your trend line there as well, up predominantly like staying up above that trend line for the most of the year, only kind of dipping below it periodically, only to get back, like, bought back up. And you could see that even on Friday, we kind of broke down on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday and Thursday, and then kind of coming back up. So that trend line now is technically resistance. But as you know, for me, it's not just about trend lines. We care about the key levels as well. So 5250, as Chris already has, these key important levels on there. I think it's important, to get an idea. The fact that we bounced up from that, we bounced up roughly almost from the 50-day moving average touch point as well. So really, this week's going to be interesting with the full week coming in, and then we'll take a look at see what's on the horizon for events as well.
Yeah, definitely some things happening this week you're going to be a want to keeping aware of because yeah, with the short trading week, things are always a little how choppy is the best way I can describe it. It feels like it's not a normal week. But let's take a look here and see the breakdown for the S&P 500 so far this year. Let me just hit that year to date, make sure we're locked in there. So yeah, let's see. As Riz was alluding to earlier, S&P 500 up almost 12% on the year, sitting at right at 11.7 right now, only being outdone by tech, utilities, and communications, with communications being the top dog, up 15 and almost a quarter percent on half the year so far, as Riz was alluding to, or just short of it for that matter. Financials looking really good, as well as energy really starting to pick up here in the last couple days. And most things actually picked up going up into Friday. A rising tide, lifts all ships, as they say. Obviously, we got consumer staples and healthcare here also above the zero line, with consumer discretionary and real estate still below zero. Real estate being in the dumpster the most, but definitely seeing a very nice pickup going up into the weekend here. So yeah, it seems like everything is pretty much up, with the exception of tech kind of pulling back a little bit here, going into the weekend. So yeah, S&P 500 represented here by the SPY ETF really, going strong this year. Wouldn't you say, Riz?
Yeah, absolutely. Another, gainer so far, half year mark, being up nearly 12%. That's sizable. And even after last year, we made a recovery after 2022's kind of a pullback. So pretty impressive to see this run up.
Definitely. Let's keep things rolling. Let's take a look here at the asset classes because that's where things are probably going to be happening. And, we have finally broken through this trend line here for oil. We had this very nice, solid move up here from about the end of last year where we hit the bottom right around 68.60 per barrel. And we just been climbing and climbing, climbing until we hit like right about here in mid-April. We started to pull back. We busted through my trend line, and now you can see we've touched that, or pretty darn close to touched it several times, but yet we're holding on to this 76 area as support for oil. One thing that really doesn't care about technicals right now, and we've talked about this multiple times, I kind of feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but man, gold just going absolutely nuts here. Looks like we made a new high on the 20th of May. But that was sold into a little bit there. Definitely the price of gold kind of coming back down, but still holding above this $2,300 per ounce. Now, as we've talked about, before, Riz, obviously we're going into the summer here with oil. Typically, we, will oftentimes, see a bit of an uptick on oil prices as more people are traveling, more people are taking road trips, things like that. But man, going into the holiday weekend here, oil did not do a whole lot, really just kind of trading sideways for the most part.
Yeah, it's still holding the 75 76 zone. It's like you said, broken below that trend line. Definitely not, I would say, a bullish kind of price action, but hey, one positive thing is that, uh the fact that it's moving sideways in more of a demand season, and hopefully that's also reflecting at the pump, and ultimately it's also positive for bringing inflation numbers back in check as well.
Yeah, definitely inflation always on people's mind. And, of course, the traditional hedge for inflation was gold. During the 2020s and all the way up until, honestly, I would say probably this year, I would say that gold really hadn't been much of a hedge of inflation. But now, I mean, we definitely seem to be continuing this rocket ship to the moon, as they would say, as the kids say these days. Riz, do you see any signs of gold stopping or pulling back anytime soon?
This one's tricky. We know that a lot of institutions, hedge funds, all that kind of stuff that I've been alluding to have actually pretty much, I would say, increased their exposure to um, gold sizably. It's a lot of concentrated positions in gold by some of these institutions. What their individual thesis is, obviously, I don't know, but we do know that there's a lot of I would say, from more of a hedging standpoint, more of a safety risk off standpoint. I guess that's really what's brought this move up, and really from here, it all comes down to, is there more of like this kind of chase by other institutions that feel maybe like, okay, they left out, but they rather get in now than wait any longer. I don't think it's clear right now if we see, gold going back up to 2,400 or higher. I would say it's kind of due for a little bit of a mean revert, a little bit of a pullback, but I doubt we're going to see anything like the 2,000 levels or even 2,100 uh, anytime soon. Because if ever, just simply based on how things are, we know that there's a lot riding into the latter half of the year with rate cuts. Um, we have obviously an election year for the U.S. And a lot of things kind of up in the air. So not surprised with some of this. gold rally, and also the fact that it's holding up still.
Yeah, I mean, not just even elections, here in the United States, but I mean, I heard that Rishi Sunak was calling for an election in the UK. So definitely a lot going on, around the world that could definitely impact the price of gold. Let's take a look here at some U.S. Treasuries. Let's take a look at the bond yields here as we continue to see an inverted yield curve with the 2 years currently outperforming both the 10 and the 30-year bonds at this point in terms of yield. We are still holding on to this trend line that I drew a couple of weeks ago, still in a very nice uptrend for the bond yields, but definitely a bit of a downturn here kind of going into the weekend. But nothing too substantial to say the least. Let's see here. Let's look at the yields right now. Currently looks like the 2 year is about 4.879% yield on that, with 30 years being in the middle, right at 4.651% yield on those bonds. The US dollar really just kind of holding steady here, holding strong at this point. We saw a little bit of a rise going into mid-April, a little bit of a pullback, and really just mostly trading sideways, or not really, we shouldn't say trading sideways, but in relation to all of the currencies, the dollar is holding its value pretty much, I would say, through the month of May at this point. Riz, are you seeing anything on these fronts that is kind of raising your eyebrows?
No, no, you touched on it on the money, so to speak. For both bond yields and the dollar.
Well, that's what we like to be here at in Riz International is in the money. That's where we like to be. All right, let's take a look at the important dates here in the market this week. As Riz alluded to earlier, we've definitely got some numbers being reported this week. Job openings on Tuesday, always an interesting one to keep an eye on. But really, the big one is going to be on Friday. We've got non-farm payrolls as well as the unemployment rate, with the unemployment rate probably being the biggest, economic data point being reported this week. Looks like they are predicting a hold on that unemployment rate, with, let's see here, looks like a bit of a decrease. If I'm seeing is 175, the forecast is lower, but the consensus is going to be higher. So that should be interesting on payrolls to see what number we actually get. But yeah, Riz, they're saying unemployment is holding steady. How do you think that would affect the market if it does actually come in at 3.9%?
Yeah, yeah, no, if it, I'm pretty sure it's going to be around in line, but of course, unemployment going up is just means there's less people working, right? That's usually what
Good
we
point.
see leading up to a slower economic growth. We see ultimately spending decrease, but the market might, even if it is a tick higher than expected, the market might kind of pull that in as being as a positive because that might give the Fed even more of a reason to cut rates, right?
Yeah.
So I know it's not America specifically, but like, for Canada, I can tell you there's kind of rumblings and talks about the first rate cut being June this month for us. So uh Canada might potentially preempt uh, the U.S. in having that first rate cut in the last over the past 2 years. So it will be interesting to see. But unemployment is just obviously important. Payrolls as well. We'll see how that goes. And job openings are also going to be important to see how many jobs are vacant and open for potentially filling. Are they new jobs being created? Are new jobs being uh, filled? Are jobs openings kind of decreasing? Meaning, uh, are employers, sorry, like just essentially saying, yeah, we don't need this role anymore. We don't need a person for this. So they're essentially taking an entire role or an opening off the table. So to see how that works and moves, month by month is important for a healthy economy, right? So all three, I would say, are the most important. Of course, unemployment, I would say, being the key, but I don't see that being too big of a change from a prior month. It's usually the non-farm payrolls and job openings that kind of have a little bit more of a swing.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. Obviously, the Fed trying to cool the economy down to kind of bring that inflation under control. And Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to stomach, but yeah, they're basically trying to, cut jobs is basically what they're saying because we got to stop all that spending. As my grandfather says, when he wanted to go buy something, you got to stimulate that economy. Well, the Fed's trying to do the opposite. So, yeah, that's a very good point. Obviously, if the unemployment rate, stays steady, that just means there's less jobs available or less people working, I should say. So, definitely not a good thing. All right, let's take a look here at the earnings calendar. Always an interesting one to talk about. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that Monday is a whole bunch of nothing. That a whole nothing burger on Monday.
Yeah.
At Tuesday, CrowdStrike could be an interesting one to kind of keep an eye on here, but yeah, really not a whole lot else to really keep on your radar other than some stuff that I will just say that people I know used to trade quite frequently. Dollar Tree, here on Wednesday could be interesting. I know we've, been in Lululemon before for those in Elite who do know that. I know we're out of it now. Of course, Victoria's Secret, every man's favorite brand, going to be reporting after the close, but not too much exciting going on here for the most part. Thursday, again, really nothing all that exciting. DocuSign is a ticker we've traded before, reporting after the close. But yeah, compared to previous weeks, this looks like a pretty boring earnings week, if you ask me. What do you think, Riz?
Yeah, definitely, that's fine. That's normal.
Yeah.
We have obviously companies reporting every week throughout the year, but earnings season is over. We got, for another couple months until it comes back around. But yeah, you touched on the key players, even NIO being, the Chinese electric car maker that's had a tremendous amount of growth and whatnot. But yeah, you touched on pretty much kind of the major ones, right? The kind of the ones that I feel a lot of people kind of might be interested in or trading and the stuff that we've traded before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes you've got exciting ones, and you can't have big names reporting earnings every week. That's just all there is to it. They do actually have to do other things other than reporting earnings. Now, let's talk on the big dog here that everybody's been saying is going to the moon and seems to have found the moon and is starting to come back to Earth. That would be Nvidia. Obviously, a huge earnings beat here, to end out the month in May. Just went absolutely nuts after that. Of course, they're also announcing a split here coming in on Monday, the 10th of June. So do be aware of that if you are holding on to Nvidia currently. But Riz, I gotta say, I was quite impressed. You stepped in front of the freight train and you came away with some dollar bills shorting this thing. Talk us through that trade a little bit because, man, all the talk in the channels I'm listening to, not ours, of course, but we're saying like, Nvidia is just going to keep on going to 1200 and 1300, but definitely seeing a
Yeah.
little bit of weakness here.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, that's all the bandwagoning and just kind of
Hmm.
the classical herd mentality, right? And in many ways, that has worked. That has worked. Like just look at it from 500 start of the year to like doubling, right? So that definitely has worked. It definitely has panned out. Just going higher and higher. But eventually, we know gravity is a force to be reckoned with. The higher you go, the more force needed to continue going up. There is just basic uh, I would say gravitational forces for you. And now when it comes to Nvidia, the same applies. So for me to kind of step in was obviously a risk, but the fact that it gapped up nicely, and remember, this is like a $2.5 trillion company. It's not a small company by any means. It's literally had a tremendous rally, and it's either 2.7 trillion now, as Chris is pointing out after a little bit of a pullback here. So that's not by any means a slouch. It's doubled, right? And it already some would argue that okay, it's already had a tremendous run in 2023 as well. So all of the backs of AI growth, servers, and all that kind of thing. So I feel like it dropping from that 1,000, 1,100 area kind of was a safe point for me, especially the fact that it gapped up after earnings and then it gapped up again,
Yeah.
right, to start off Tuesday. So I'm like, interesting. So we got in, I believe, on Wednesday, really near the peak, and then wrote it down till Friday. Quite get that bottom, that wick at the bottom there, but that's fine. Got out with some nice profits. I'm happy to finally have secured a short uh trade on Nvidia with profit, so that's good. Maybe we see another re-entry. I don't know, but I wanted to take that off the table before going into the weekend. We know anything could really happen on Monday, and this is not something I want to overstay my welcome in, especially as we know it kind of rips to the high upside, which is absurd. It moves like a small cap, it moves like a mid cap, and when it's literally like this third largest, second largest company, on the in the U.S. So it's amazing. It's extraordinary. We've never seen anything like this. But hey, this is the times we live in.
Yeah, it really is. And, just to be aware, I did kind of allude to that stock split here coming up on June 10th. So be aware if you are holding through that, you should see 10 times the number of shares in your account that you did the close before on that Friday prior. So, but don't worry, the price will be reflected of that. So, definitely something to keep aware of if you are planning on holding this long term or, through this pullback if it does pull back. But yeah, definitely a lot of hype running into this, these earnings. And, when the market was all red, Nvidia was the only thing that was going green, so it was quite an interesting run up. We'll have to see kind of going into that split how the price behaves. If we start to see a pullback, like Riz was alluding to, closer to this 1,000 area, or maybe pull back a little bit more pre-split, will be interesting to watch. Riz, let me know what is kind of on your radar this week for people who maybe are looking for something to keep an eye on. What could you recommend for them?
Yeah, there's a few. So kind of things that I've just watching. There are a lot of things have recovered. A lot of things are kind of overdone, but there are a few pockets of opportunities, right? One of the I can let's just kind of play my hand here, but we will be taking a position in a UPS the start of the week. Right? So
Oh
that's
yeah.
something for people to consider. We're taking a long position here, buying there. Another one people can consider is HD Home Depot, right? A little bit of a pickup as well. Um, Kind of right off that uh, I would want to say, yeah, kind of like a long-term support back in, August, July, September area. But yeah, not a bad entry considering not don't have a position yet. Those are the two things I can kind of tell you for those watching, especially those outside of Elite to kind of keep an eye on. We had a couple moves post earnings that kind of uh, didn't go too well. So like one is MDB that we don't have a position in, but something people might want to keep an eye on post earnings. A
Ooh,
big drop. Uh,
ooh.
yeah, about a 20% drop, 24% drop there. It was a big one. So I'll be keeping an eye on this to see if it finds a floor, where it finds a floor. It will find a floor, but where? Yeah, very oversold. So potentially this is another entry as well. So obviously elite members will know real time what I'm doing.
No, those are definitely some interesting names. Wow, talk about a bloodbath. My goodness. What reminds me of AMD back in the days. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in from our elite members here who are live. So I really appreciate everybody coming out. As we come back into a full week, Riz, kind of what are your thoughts, going into this last month of Q2? I know it feels bad to say something like that because it feels like the year just started and we're almost halfway done already, which is just nuts. Obviously the year has been going pretty good for all of us here in Elite so far. What are your thoughts going into, this final month of the first half of the year?
Same old, same old. Honestly, usually we do see a little bit of a slowdown in volatility in the summer months. Again, not it's not a guarantee. But usually we do see a little bit of less of some kind of, heavy volatility. Anything can happen, but hey, so I'm not doing anything different. Obviously, I'm always going to be scouting for opportunities. I've been as the markets continue to crank away, kind of consolidate at that 5,300 all-time highs. I've been a little bit more patient, extra patient, with not doing anything because I want more direction. So we thought we had some direction, in this short trading week with especially Thursday and Friday. Sorry, Wednesday and Thursday, and then with Friday kind of completely throwing a spanner in the works, right? Like undoing Thursdays and Wednesdays kind of drop. So it's like kind of like one of those well, now what type of scenarios. And this happens. This is normal. It's important not to glean too much out of it. So that's why Monday is going to be important for me to kind of test water, see how it is. And then potentially based on how I see the market moving, consider some of the setups.
Sage advice for you right there. Stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else, as opposed to everyone who is just saying just buy, buy, buy. So with that, as always, be safe out there for the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you in the market on Monday.